And now the continuation of job affinities and what they do. Thank you all for being so patient. Here we go. Right? So that's good. Paladin, another one of my favorites. At 120, you get a vigor bonus +2. Increases break damage dealt when MP is at max by 11.3%. So again, you could also pair something like this with something like the Dragoons. Not necessarily the Dark Knights, because Dark Knights you'll rarely ever be at max HP, especially if you're using Soul Eater. But Paladin and Dragoon will work pretty well because again, you're exploiting the enemy weakness at 600. You're going to be regaining MP back, and so after a point, there's going to come a point to where you've recovered all that you can recover, but you're still doing damage. Now you're doing more break damage, on top of staying at max health, on top of having restorative properties that will keep you at max health, right? So very good to have, and pretty decent to pair with like Dragoon, right? At 160 we have Paladin's Wisdom 4. Increases your HP by 100, your stamina by 3, and your spirit by 1. Good stat bonuses. At 250, you have Bringer of Light. Gradually restores HP while Lightbringer is active. So again, you're on extra mode. You got this at 250, and then you say you got your Dragoon at 600. I mean, like there are just things that complement each other. Whether it's HP or it's defense or it's attack speed or it's physical damage dealt or it's break damage dealt, whatever. There are just things that synergize with one another. And if you can find enough of those things that synergize with one another, you're going to have such a good build. Like, I mean, that's the only way to really say it. You're going to have such a good build, and you're going to be min-maxed to a point to where there's not too much more that you could squeeze out of it, right? That's what you want to do, especially at Gilgamesh and further difficulties. You want to just squeeze every last drop of power or defense or whatever out of it that you can manage to, because that spike is ridiculous. At 400, you have Purifying Light. Grants immunity to all status ailments. Everything. Can't be paralyzed, can't be petrified, can't be poisoned, can't be slowed, can't any of that. Like you're out of that. Which at this difficulty gives you a direct reason to boost your Trials of the Dragon King. There's a oh Lord, help me out here. There's an option where you can increase it up to 5, like all the rest of them, where you will gain a status ailment by taking damage. Having this at 400 basically allows you to, that's free. That's a free 5 that you don't have to worry about. So now there are ways that you can mitigate certain things in the Trials of the Dragon King, which is another system that you're going to need to use because you need Dragon Treasure. And if you need Dragon Treasure for nothing else, you need it for Anima Crystals. Because like I said, once you've gone through and you've done all the story missions at 500, and you've done all the side missions at 500, and God forbid you've done the red missions at 500, your first clear bonuses are gone. You've gotten them, you've obtained them, now they're gone. And going back through these missions and trying to grind them solely for Anima Crystals is just foolish. Because they don't give you anything. They give you like 20, 30 at a time after you've gotten your first time completion bonus for it. Like, it's not worth it. So if you're going to grind these missions, grind them for Dragon Treasure. Because then you can go and you can get an Anima Crystal for 20 Dragon Treasure a pop. And if your Trials of the Dragon King is doing well, if its rate and rank is high enough, you can just find you a good mission to do and grind that over and over and get thousands of Dragon Treasure at a time. So something to keep into mind. But this is a free fiver on that Trials of the Dragon King. You will not have to worry about status ailments. You don't want your allies to deal with that. You're going to have to make sure that this is on them as well. At 600, you have Memories of a Tested Paladin. A successful soul shield increases your max HP. This effect can stack up to 20 times. Also increases the effect of Paladin's Wisdom. So this could be this could be, what do you call it? Combined with, I think it is Samurai this time. Am I right? It's not Samurai. It's one of these. Maybe it was Monk. Was it Monk? Yeah. Yeah, so you could pair that. You could pair Paladin with Monk, right? Deal additional non-elemental damage based on your max HP. So you wouldn't use those classes necessarily, just their affinities, because that's why I'm going through just the affinities of the classes. Because the job you decide to use is, I mean, that's dependent upon you. That's dependent upon your playstyle, how you decide to approach the game. That's all dependent upon you. But these affinities matter in enhancing your playstyle, enhancing how you want to conduct combat. So, like I said, for me, like I like Sage. So if I'm a Sage, but I like Sage because I like using Ultima. I like being able to do that. So if I have a Sage that can do that's trying to do as much non-elemental break damage as possible, I want to try to have 600 in Paladin. I want to try to have 600 in Monk, because I will be doing more damage the more my max HP is with Monk, and I can increase that max HP with Paladin. You see? But I'm using Sage. That's kind of the idea. Next we have Ninja. Afflicted enemy bonus 2. When an enemy is afflicted with a status ailment, increases MP recovery from normal attacks by 16.9. So this is all about status ailments. I haven't dabbled with status ailments very much in this game, just because I don't know why. I mean, I appreciate that they left them in here, right? I'm looking at you, 16. I appreciate that they left status ailments in this game. There has never been a reason to remove status ailments at all. But that being said, increases your MP recovery by using from normal attacks by 16.9%. And I'm sure that there's ways that you can stack status ailments as well. So, you know, take that as you will. You know, take that for what it's worth. Try to combine these two things. Ninja's Wisdom, 4 at 160. You get 1 to Strength, 2 to Intellect, 2 to Spirit, 3 to Agility. These green classes, Agility is going to be really important. So just take that into account. Fatal Blow at 250. Critical hits will reduce the enemy's max break gauge. This does not necessarily just, I mean, obviously it's not just for Ninja. There are a multitude of ways that you can get crits. And I mean, increasing your luck by itself can increase the chance that you will critically hit. But if there was a way to use this effectively, I think it would be through DPS. DPS just seems like it works the best. You know, it's not the only way, but it just works the best for this kind of thing. Because it's not incredibly difficult to get a critical hit. If you flank your enemy and attack them, you can get critical hits. But being able to do it, because like, well, I don't know, when I think of it, I just think of doing it really fast and getting a lot of crits at once, therefore just draining that break gauge. Like I said, there are a lot of different ways to do it. It's just up to you as the player to decide how you want to conduct combat and what works well for you. And if you want to do crits and you want to get rid of that break gauge as fast as you possibly can, this is a good one to think about using, especially if you're more inclined towards DPS type builds. At 400, you have Way of the Ninja. All ability attacks will temporarily decrease enemy break gauge recovery. So, not the gauge itself, but how fast they recover the gauge. All ability attacks, no matter what they are. At 600, you have Memories of a Nimble Ninja. After avoiding an enemy attack with evade invincibility, restores MP. Also enhances the effect of Ninja's Wisdom. So this is not the roll, right? This is not XX. This is just X. After you do that, you get some MP back. If you're good at doing that, you won't have to worry about MP. Pretty straightforward. Assassin. Soul Shield, cost bonus 2, reduces break gauge cost of a successful soul shield by 8.8%. Cats like me need to use stuff like this, which I don't know why I haven't been using it. I just kind of veered away from the green because I don't use quick weapons. I mean, I don't. I mean, if I'm using a weapon, I'm using an axe or I'm using a great sword. Every now and again, I'll use like a spear or like a staff to attack, but I don't use fists. I don't use dual knives or short swords or anything like that. You know, so I don't think about it like that, right? But anyways, reduces break gauge cost of successful soul shield by 8.8%. Assassin's Wisdom increases the corresponding stats. Stamina, intellect, and agility. Agility +4 because this is a green job. Oops. Ephemeral Thoughts at 250 increases or implies an additional agility bonus to all abilities that grant stat bonuses. So this time it's just agility instead of intellect or luck or spirit or any of that. Final Moments at 400 increases break damage the longer you avoid taking damage. For something like a sage, like the job that I'm using, for instance, trying to stay away from the enemy, buff my party members, buff myself, do damage, and then cast Ultima, doing as much non-elemental break damage as I can possibly do. At the same time, I'm trying not to get hit. Like, that's something that I'm actively seeking to not get hit. Whether I'm evading out of charging a spell or whether I'm soul shielding out of charging a spell, I'm just trying to stay away from the enemy. And so this gives me more opportunity to do more damage the longer I don't take damage, which is very good. It's definitely applicable to something like a sage. I'm sure there are other ways that you could use it and apply it to your playstyle as well. Sage is just what came to mind for me. And then at 600, you have Memories of a Shadowy Mercenary. A successful soul shield increases your agility. This effect can stack up to 20 times. Also enhances the effects of Assassin's Wisdom. So this time it's agility instead of strength or intellect or anything like that. Liberator has parry bonus. At parry bonus 2 at 120, increases the window of time in which a parry can be performed by 25%. That's quite a bit. That's a good amount, actually, because now, granted, it's not incredibly difficult to get parries in this game, but if you can, oh, excuse me, I lost my train of thought. If you can do it quicker, then you're just more efficient in your combat loop, which is what you want to be, especially at higher difficulties. At 160, you have Liberator's Wisdom 4, more stat increases, 50 to HP, 30 stamina, 30 spirit. At 250, you have Liberation of the Soul, increases the potency of HP recovery effects. So things like Dragoon at 600 and Paladin at 600 and your potions and how much mastery points you put into them to increase their potency and all that kind of stuff. Like, this will just further increase that potency. This is a separate multiplier that applies to everything that you've already done to be put into effect. So now you're stacking a bunch of different things, right? So for health specifically, you could have Dragoon at 600, you could have Paladin at 600, you could have whatever job you're using, you could have your potency of your HP to increase to whatever percentage, and you could have that just on the job mastery points, and then you could go in to your equipment effects on all your pieces of armor and your weapon, and even your accessory to a point. You'd have to find one that has it on there, but they're there, and you could just have all these different things on there that already increase your HP, that are already HP recovery effects. This is just a multiplier for those. So if you really wanted to stay at max HP, I guess in theory you could. On paper, everything's there, theoretically, to make that a thing, a vampire build, so to speak. I don't know how useful it would be. You would have to need a lot of HP to want to utilize it like that. But the vampire build could be something of a tank build. So you could have a lot of HP, a lot of stamina, which gives you a lot of physical defense, and a lot of spirit, which gives you a lot of magical defense. So there's definitely like a reason to want to do that, right? Definitely. At 400, you have Hero's Guidance. Shares the effects of potions with your allies and revives any fallen party members. I love this one. This one is fantastic, especially if you're not inclined towards White Mage or Sage. This is fantastic because if you have Sage, for instance, at 400 with Sage, your potions refill your MP gauge, and they also refill your break gauge. Any percentage that you've placed on that potion also applies to your party members. And if they're dead, you can just use a potion and revive them. I mean, that's a plus all the way around. Any job could use that. Any build could use that. It's a fantastic perk at 400, and one that I personally am striving to go for everything that I can manage to have it in, right? Everything that I can possibly manage to have it in, I want to have it in. At 600, you have Memories of a Godslayer. Increases party member stats by a certain percentage of your strength, agility, stamina, intellect, luck, and spirit. Spirit and luck, I mix those two. Also enhances the effects of Liberator's Wisdom. Buffing your party members, just giving them more stats based off of a percentage of your stats, makes them stronger, makes them more resilient, makes them tougher, makes them hit harder when they actually do hit. You know, I mean, it's just, this is definitely for if you care about your allies in your party with you. If you want them to do the absolute most that they can do, this is a good one to have. 600 and Liberator. Okay, we're nearing the end here. Breaker. At 120, you have Soul Burst bonus 2, and increases the MP restored with a successful Soul Burst by 18%. So this is not blocking with the Soul Shield. This is crystallizing them and then breaking them into a million pieces and then getting the MP from that. That's what this is. Breaker's Wisdom 4, you get more in HP, strength, stamina, and agility. Power Seeker at 250 applies an additional strength bonus to all abilities that grant stat bonuses, so it's strength this time. At 400, Shadowbreaker increases the damage dealt after a successful Soul Burst. So you Soul Burst them, which is crystallizing them, smash them into a million pieces. You get more damage. You do that again while that effect is active, and it will further increase the damage bonus. This is a very good one, a very good percentage affinity to have for melee builds. Melee builds that have an interest in using the Soul Shield and Soul Bursting cats, doing a lot of break damage with their melee attacks, that kind of stuff. This is really good for that. At 600, you have Memory of the Star Scourge. A successful Soul Shield increases your strength. This effect can stack up to 20 times. Also enhances the effect of Breaker's Wisdom. So you get a bonus at 160, and the more you Soul Shield, the more powerful you become. Defense has now been turned into offense, and that stacks up to 20 times. Very good to have as a melee build. Void Knight. At 120, you have MP limit bonus 2. Increased boost to MP limit by 11.3%. So there is a stat in the mastery tree, in the job mastery tree, or list rather, where you can increase the rate at which your MP limit is boosted. This is just another increase to that boost limit. To boosting that limit, I should say. At 160, Void Knight's Wisdom 4, you get your stat bonuses. At 250, Void Rune increases the potency of MP recovery effects. So attacking to gain more MP at 250. This will increase that by however much. At 400, Power of the Void greatly reduces the cost of command abilities, so things like Flee, Zanshin, Mighty Strikes, Teleport, Sentinel, any of that kind of stuff. It will greatly reduce the cost of those. And at 600, you have Memories of a Disillusioned Knight. Grants the effects of haste when your max HP, or I'm sorry, when your max MP is 400 or higher. That's a permanent state, so long as you have 400 or higher. So that's just 2 more bars from default, which is not hard to obtain at all. Also enhances the effects of Void Knight Wisdom, so you get some additional stat bonuses there as well. But permanent haste, right? Permanent haste. So this, and let me see which one it is. I think it's Paladin. No, it's not Paladin. It's one of these. I will find it. Trying to see. What does it say? Oh, that's that's Berserker. Yeah, that's Berserker. So you could put Berserker, Dark Knight, and Void Knight together, and boy oh boy, you would automatically have, granted your MP is above 400 or is at 400 or above, you would have a permanent state of Protect, Shell, and Haste just by default. That is incredible, absolutely incredible. Good for any kind of build. Melee builds would really benefit from that, more so than anything else, I think. But that's just, I mean, to have the status effect by itself is good enough. But to be in a permanent state of it, when you have things like Trials of the Dragon King that have effects where if enemies hit you, it drains the duration or lessens the duration of your buffs, like, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And on top of that, you no longer have to go into mastery points. If you were doing that, you no longer have to go into mastery points and use mastery points to increase the buff's duration, because it's a permanent state. It's infinite. You don't have to, I mean, those are wasted points at that point, which could then go into something else, some kind of physical attack stat, or some kind of attack stat, I should say, some kind of defense stat, more HP. Maybe you need a little bit more affinity just from the base job that you're using. I mean, like, you free up points, right? And that's really what you want to do, is free up points. So this is a really good one in combination with Paladin and Dark Knight and Berserker. Now we have Tyrants. I think we're almost done. Yeah, there's like these last few ones here. Vulnerability bonus at 2. Increases accumulation of status ailments on enemy by 22.5%. Really good if you're trying to stack status ailments on enemies. It's very good for that. Tyrant's Wisdom at 4. You get an increase to intellect, spirit, and agility. 250. Tyrant's Trap restores HP based on damage dealt when targeting enemy weakness. There have been skills before that do something similar to that could synergize with this very thing. So just take those into account, add it to it. It might work out for you. You know, it's just combination. It's another piece for combination. You just have to find out what it combines with. At 400, you have Absolute Dominion. All attacks against an enemy afflicted with a status element will critically hit. This is huge. Absolutely huge. Every attack, if you're able to get that status element on them, and you're able to let that status ailment go for a long amount of time, it takes them much longer to recover from it. This is huge for damage, because everything that you do will critically hit them. And if you've already got things set in place, like ability damage increased, or ability break damage, or charged ability break damage, or fire damage, or ice damage, or whatever kind of damage that you're doing, it's going to do more damage. If you get more damage from critically hitting and you're like a DPS build, this is going to be huge for you, because every attack is going to critically hit. for as long as they hold that status ailment. It's very good. And then at 600, you have Memories of a Tyrant. Temporarily increases the amount of MP gained by normal attacks after performing a chain cancel. Chain cancel, again, light attack ability, switch to job. That's a chain cancel. Once you do that, you will temporarily increase the amount of MP gained by normal attacks, which just can be further supplemented by the job mastery tree. I'm going to have to do an entire video on the job mastery tree because it really is a very crucial part of the build making, and it needs to be used correctly. Sage, my absolute favorite class in this game, hands down. There's no class in this game, no job in this game that I love more than Sage. Soul Shield bonus 2 at 120. Increases the MP restored with a successful Soul Shield by 33.8%. That is huge by itself. By itself, that is huge. To get that and the job mastery tree, you would have to spend like 20, 25 points just to get up to that point, right? Like, that's huge by itself. And then it's like you can supplement that. So you can just take your 33.8 and then go and spend those points anyway to get even more back. Like, it's phenomenal. Sage's Wisdom 4 at 160. You get 4 to Intellect, 4 to Spirit. This is a magic-based class. No room, no place for physical attacks here, really. Not really. At 250, you have Elemental Force. Nullifies all magic damage while guarding. And that's regular guarding. So whether you have just a weapon in your hand or you're using a shield, doesn't matter. If they're casting magic at you, you can just block it, and it won't do anything to you. 400, Ancient Knowledge. Potions now also restore MP and refill the break gauge. How could you not want this in your class? It's absolutely phenomenal. And yes, I know I'm gushing over it. I'm biased. I'm absolutely biased. Because, like, to allow your potions to do all that, the less you have to use the limited amount of potions that they give you, and the more bang for your buck that you get out of them, like, the more you can focus on actually conducting combat. You know, I mean, I attribute it a little bit to like how it was in like Fallout 3, for instance, because like I always used to have a grip of stim packs in Fallout 3, and I also made sure that my medicine skill was up really high, so that way I would always have, because they didn't weigh anything, I would always have a lot of stim packs, and I would only ever have to use like 1 or 2, like per fight. And so I'm always in this state of always having my potions, or I'm always having my stim packs. Same idea here. I'm now trying to be in a state where I'm always having my potions. I'm always having a full break gauge. I'm always having MP. And so, like, yeah, that's just what it is, right? Like, it's just phenomenal. Like, there's no other way around it. It's just phenomenal. And then 600. Memories of a Wizard Who Defied Death. Lightbringer can be used while afflicted with any status ailment, and using it will cure all status ailments and debuffs while recovering HP. Fantastic. Also increases the effects of Sage's Wisdom. You get a bonus there. Fantastic. If you're not going to go into the Paladin side of things at 400, you can just go into this at 600. Use Lightbringer. Will heal you of all status ailments and debuffs, and it will recover your health. Absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And then we have Summoner at 120. Increases max MP while chain canceling. I believe this is the max MP limit. So if you like to loop chain cancels like that, this is very good for that. For gaining MP that way. 160, you have Summoner's Wisdom. Increase in Strength, Intellect, Spirit, and Agility. At 250, you have Mist Blessing. Decreases sustained MP cost. So there are certain R2s that you'll use, like with Summoner, or like with Berserker, or like with Dark Knight, where you'll hit the R2 and it will drain. Maybe not Dark Knight. I think Dark Knight's just for HP. But Berserker is MP. And it'll just like gradually drain your MP, right? Having this at 250, it will decrease that cost. Because it is going to drain out, but this will just decrease the sustained cost of that. At 400, you have Trance Soul. A successful Soul Shield increases the duration of active buffs very good if you're using Soul Shield. If you're really into buffing yourself, if you're, you know, just trying to be as powerful as you can be, and you're trying to sustain your buffs now, like Transsoul is good to have for that purpose. At 600, you have Memories of a Pious Summoner. Increases the potency of your primary summon's blessing. Also enhances the effect of the summoner's wisdom, or of summoner's wisdom. So you get a bonus there. So your primary summoner's blessing is that little box on the bottom right there that says primary blessing. Right now it's empty because I'm on a just default class, but there are different I guess icons, as what they call them in Final Fantasy, summons, aeons, whatever, that have an effect, whether that be Bahamut or Ifrit or Carbuncle or Odin, or, you know, anything, Sylph, anything like that, right? Like there'll be a blessing that they give you, and you only get those blessings if you have a specific type of weapon or armor called relics. These are like dark purplish, in their name, and the color of their name and stuff is like dark purplish. That's the only time that you'll ever get that, that this will ever be usable. So that you will get the most out of this with at least one of these weapons, but you really want a full set of relic weapons to be able to get the most out of this. Because if you don't have any kind of primary blessing, then this, like, there's no reason to go up to 600 with Summoner at all. So it's about looking for relic weapons, which we'll talk about later on, going on down the line. But yeah, that's what that's for. It's for whatever blessing that you get from a relic weapon. Yeah. So closing in on the end here, Gambler. At 120, you have Fixed Dice 2. Restores a random amount of MP when performing a chain cancel. Pretty self-explanatory. Gambler's Wisdom 4. Your stats increase, your intellect, your agility, and your luck. 250, Fortune's Favorite. Occasionally nullifies damage when an enemy hits. This chance increases with the luck stat. Gambler is all about luck. If you were on the fence about increasing your luck with any other class, you don't have to worry about it at all. Worrying about that at all with this class. You want luck. You want a lot of luck with Gambler. And if you can occasionally nullify the damage, I mean, that's damage you've not taken. I mean, that very well could be the difference between life and death. I mean, literally. It could definitely be. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been trapped in a corner and couldn't see anything and had to just try to rely on knowledge of of enemies' movesets and trying to telegraph it while I'm in the corner and can't see. Like, I mean, that doesn't work all the time. Sometimes you just get hit. And with something like this, it might give you enough time to find a way out of the corner or out of the situation so that you can back off and heal and buff back up and do everything that you need to do, right? So this is like pretty good. It just depends on the situation. At 400, you have Lucky Punch. All attacks have a small chance to become criticals. This stat, or this chance, increases with the luck stat. Again, more luck. If we can have a chance to do critical damage, which is just better damage, like just all around, then that's what we want. So that's what this does at 400. And at 600, you have Memories of a Wingless Gambler. Increases break damage though. This effect is more potent with less MP. Also enhances the effect of Gambler's Wisdom. So you get a stat boost there. But this presupposes that you don't use MP. Or that you've used a skill that reduces your max MP by a lot. And so, like for instance, let's say you use Meteor, right? That's what is that? Is it Meteor or is it Flare? I think it's Flare. Yeah. So let's say you use Flare. That's with a Black Mage. That's one of their I think that's one of their subclasses that gives you the opportunity to use Flare. When you use Flare, It does a lot of damage, but it reduces your max MP. So if your goal is to have the least amount of MP possible, and then switch to a class that does a lot of break damage, some kind of melee class, for instance, that does a lot of break damage, like Breaker or something like that, right? Having this at 600 on the Breaker class would be a pretty good idea. Because of the whole point is just doing a lot of break damage, and this increases break damage, just not having MP is the stipulation for that. Then, I mean, why not? You know, I mean, you've already used all your MP. That's not to say that you won't have any use for it in Breaker. I mean, you want to use your Shin Zantetsuken and all your different abilities, action abilities and stuff like that. But I mean, just something to kind of like think about. There has to be a job or a situation in this game that you can set up to where you have lost all your MP and you no longer need that MP. But there's a way that you can still do a lot of break damage how you want to be able to do break damage. Maybe that break damage doesn't necessarily come from abilities. So if you take abilities out of there, which cost MP, then you no longer have to worry about it, right? So I mean, something to think about. Gambler is a weird class. I think it is cool because it's like one of the only classes, if not the only class, that gets all of the benefits, any benefits that you get out of the class, you get from luck, and luck by itself is a very divisive stat. You either like having a lot of luck or you don't even think about luck, right? So I mean, it's very niche. It's very niche, but there are some benefits to it. Cyclic Warrior. At 120, you get the Stranger's bonus. 2. Increases damage dealt to the enemy's max break gauge by abilities by 22.5%. Definitely something I'm going for personally because that's what I want to do. I not only want to tear their break gauge down, I want them to have none of it left. I want them to have absolutely none of it left. So this is really good for me or someone like me. At 160, you have Cyclic Warrior's Wisdom. You get more strength, more stamina, more intellect. At 250, you have Fearless Soul. Gradually increases your MP limit when your MP limit is below 200. So, I mean, you start at 200, so it wouldn't start increasing then. You would have to use some kind of skill or something to drain it down below 200. But once it does, it will gradually start to increase your MP limit. And I imagine the longer you stay at that lower usable MP, the higher the actual limit will rise. The longer that you stay at that point. At 400, you have Divine Punishment. Using a Soul Burst while Lightbringer is active will increase Lightbringer's duration. So this is just another way that you can increase the duration of Lightbringer. You can also go into your job mastery points and you can increase it there. You can, you might very well actually be able to add it to certain pieces of equipment. And I know that there are Evocation and Ultima equipment effects that do that as well. So this is just another way to stay in Lightbringer if you're not in extra mode. At 600, Memories of He Who Walks with Chaos. Effects that activate on a successful soul shield will also activate on Lightbringer. Also enhances the effects of Cyclic Warrior's Wisdom. So whatever you get out of a successful soul shield, whether that be HP, MP, more break gauge, faster break, or not more break gauge, but a faster recovery of the break gauge, any of that kind of stuff, it also activates in Lightbringer. So this is a very good one to be in Lightbringer. This would probably be the class that you use to start that build. Would be this class. And then finally, Blue Mage. It gets a stat bonus from everything. So whatever you like to use, this is a good thing for it. At 120, you get an enemy ability bonus. Increases the damage dealt by your enemy abilities. At 160, you get Blue Mage's Wisdom. A flat 2 to Strength, Stamina, Spirit, and Luck. At 250, you get Learning. Increases the number of instant ability uses gained on a successful Soul Shield. Sometimes you only get 1. Sometimes you get 2. Very rarely will you get 3 or so. With Learning, you get more. And if you have it set up to where, your instant, you deal more break damage with instant abilities like that, Blue Mage is really good for that. If you use the Soul Shield a lot, Blue Mage is good for that. I mean, there's, like I said, again, a very niche class, not something that you see every day, but there are applications for it. There's applications for every last one of these classes. You just have to, whether you're being serious or you're grinding or you're just clowning around, like there are applications for every last one of these. You just have to find it. At 400, you have Burst Affinity. When hitting with an enemy ability, restores MP based on the damage dealt. I'm pretty sure there's a way to increase the damage that instant abilities do. And if that is the case, then you'll probably just be getting more MP based on that damage. And at 600, you have Memories of an Azure Adventurer. Inflicting enough physical damage will cause your next ability to do increased magic damage. This effect can stack up to 3 times, so kind of a reverse of the other one. Also enhances the effect of Blue Mage's Wisdom. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory. And that is it for the basic jobs, like just the base jobs, right? There's about 35 here by my last count. Each one of these classes does something differently. Each one of these classes just gives you a different way to approach combat, and it gives you just a lot of flexibility with how you want to conduct combat, like how you want to engage with the combat, with the gameplay loop. Every last one of these classes allow you to do that. And the great part about it is that you don't have to you definitely can. That's probably why there are so many different presets, but you don't have to make a bajillion different classes for every single situation. You can just take the affinities of what they do with the class or the job that you want to use and apply it there. Now, that very well may not work all the time. There are too many classes and too many subclasses. There's 2 for each of these. So, I mean, there's just so much depth and so much flexibility and so many options and so many different ways that you can combine these things together, because a lot of these things synergize with each other while others don't necessarily synergize with each other. There's so many different ways that you can use these. And it's up to you as the player to find the effects on these affinities that work for you, that complement your playstyle, and that allow you to have the most fun and do the most damage, or just output the most out of whatever your kit is, right? That's kind of the idea here. And we haven't even gotten into, the smithy and all that other kinds of stuff. Like, there's just so much here. But what I have learned is that if we can grasp the idea of what is being presented to us now, the systems that come later make more sense, because a lot of those systems that come later are just addendums to the original system that was put in place. Things like fusing, that's just an addendum to the smithy, right? Like, you can understand how fusing works once you understand how the overall smithy works, like what the purpose of it is, right? Same idea with your classes. Once you understand what your class is supposed to do, and what its affinities are supposed to do, then you can combine that with a class that you like to get the most out of that class, and be able to go as far as you want to go with that class and do do things with that class that you otherwise may not be able to do with that class. You know, gain advantages from that class that you wouldn't otherwise get, which is why I love the affinity system. So, with that being said, I have paused this video like 3 different times. So there's probably going to be a couple of cuts or something that you guys see. I'm going to try to make it as not noticeable as possible. But, you know, I'm not good at video editing, so fair warning. But anyways, that is the base jobs. The next time around, we'll just go down the sub jobs, right? The sub jobs I think will be a lot shorter, just because the sub jobs only really affect the R2 that you're using, right? So like Sword Fighter, for instance, base it's Interception, but Divine Commander it's Grounded Stance, and then Demon Slayer Champion it's Fang Fetter Stance, right? So it really just kind of changes that. Yes, your wisdom things over there change, but it's just the name. It doesn't change what the stats are that you obtain from the base version of the class or anything like that. It's just it's just a change of the name. So yeah, with that being said, I hope this was informative. I know it was kind of long. I tried to make it as short as I possibly could. I did have like a phone call and then some other things that went on in the middle of my video making, so I did have to cut it short at some points and stopped kind of abruptly. But like I said, I'm gonna try to make that as unnoticeable as I possibly can. But anyways, like I said, I hope you found this informative. I hope I explained things properly to you. I hope I didn't over-explain some things. I hope I didn't go off on a tangent too much, because that's kind of why I do this, right? Like I want to talk about games, and I don't really have anyone to talk about games with. So that's kind of why I make these videos and stuff like that. So yeah, I hope I was able to explain it and articulate it in a way that you could get it and you could understand it and that it makes sense. But with all that being said, thanks for watching. I'm Devoured. I will see you next time for part 3, where we go over the subclasses for each of the jobs. Take it easy.